Ever feel like, your church's media ministry is kind of like a leaky boat? You're just trying to bail water out and keep it afloat.
Yeah, I've been there. It's like you're constantly putting out fires instead of actually, you know, steering the ship.
Exactly. And that's why this deep dive is all about getting back to the basics, building that solid foundation for your AV workflow. We're drawing from the wisdom of AJ, who's been in the church tech trenches for
Oh
years.
yeah, AJ's the real deal.
Yeah.
And the best part, you don't need a mega church budget to make this stuff work.
Right. He really hammers home the importance of nailing the fundamentals, which is so refreshing. Like, I'm all for shiny new cameras and fancy software, but
But if the foundation's cracked, the whole thing's going to crumble.
100%. It's like, okay, I'll admit, I once forgot to plug in the main microphone during a wedding ceremony.
I know. Did anyone notice?
Okay, so it could have been a total disaster, right? But because we had a backup plan, and this is key because we had it documented and ready to go, nobody even noticed. Seamless switch, crisis averted.
See, documentation is king. AJ would be proud. It's not about memorizing every single cable connection. It's about having that step-by-step guide for, well, for everything.
Totally. Imagine like a new volunteer walks in. Maybe they've never even touched a soundboard before.
Right. They're probably terrified.
Exactly. But with a good checklist, they can literally run the entire service like a pro.
Exactly. That's the pressure off everyone.
Mm.
And speaking of pressure, AJ is a huge advocate for contingency plans, too. He compares it to, like, having a lifeboat on a ship. You hope you never have to use it.
But you'd be crazy not to have it.
Exactly. So let's say Facebook Live decides to crash mid-sermon, or your internet connection takes an unexpected coffee break.
It happens.
Right. So according to AJ, that's when having a backup plan for every stage becomes crucial.
Love that. He happily suggests like documenting how to manually stream to YouTube, for example, or how to quickly troubleshoot those common tech hiccups. So it's like you're creating this mental map of what to do when, inevitably, things go sideways, which, let's face it, they sometimes do. And this all ties back to the importance of recording every service.
Oh, 100%.
Right.
In fact, AJ's company actually helped the church use their security, like their service recording after an incident, because they thankfully recorded everything.
Wow. That's incredible. So it's not just about like having a plan A, you got to have a plan B and maybe even a plan C up your sleeve, but it's not just about safety and security either. Recording allows for constant improvement, right?
Absolutely. AJ encourages churches to, like, treat their recordings like game footage. What went well? What could be improved? Even sharing those recordings with other ministries like the music team, for example, can be incredibly valuable.
Like we're all on the same team here, right?
Yeah.
Striving for the high quality experience and that honest feedback is, well, it's crucial for growth. But okay, so we've got our plan, we've got our backup plan, we're documenting everything. How do we make sure everything actually runs smoothly come Sunday morning?
Well, AJ has a rather interesting approach to that. He's a big advocate for, he calls them mock live streams, basically.
Off live streams. Okay, I'm intrigued.
Yeah, so you get your whole team together, right?
Yeah, okay.
And you run through a full dress rehearsal, like it's actually Sunday morning.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah,
So it's like a tech test for your entire workflow.
exactly. Lights, camera, action, the whole shebang, but without the pressure of, a live audience. It's the perfect time to test those contingency plans, right?
Right.
Identify any bottlenecks.
Yeah, totally.
Make sure everybody's comfortable with their roles.
Because it's one thing to have it all planned out on paper,
Yeah.
but actually doing it even in a simulated environment,
Right.
it can be really revealing. You might discover your camera operator needs a better view of the stage, or like the transition between worship songs is kind of clunky, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it creates that safe space for, for volunteers to learn, make mistakes, and grow their skills.
Mhm.
Because let's face it, technology can be a little intimidating.
Oh, for sure.
And nobody wants to feel like they're going to crash the whole system during a live service.
Speaking of feeling supported, AJ doesn't really dive too deep into this aspect, but I think it's worth discussing. Like, how do we create that welcoming and supportive environment for our media ministry volunteers, especially for those who, maybe aren't as tech savvy?
That's such a good question. It speaks to the human side of media ministry, right?
Yes.
We're not just dealing with cameras and cables, and
Right.
we're dealing with people, their passions, their talents, and sometimes, yeah, their anxieties too.
Totally. I remember when I first started volunteering in the sound booth, I was terrified of messing up the audio levels.
Yeah, it's scary.
It wasn't until One of the more experienced volunteers that kind of took me under their wing, showed me the ropes, encouraged me to like, just experiment. And
Yeah.
that's when I really started to feel comfortable.
And that's the key, right?
Yeah.
Fostering that culture of mentorship and encouragement,
Yes.
where volunteers feel valued, empowered to learn and grow. It's about celebrating those small victories alongside the big ones.
Totally.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's not about having like the fanciest equipment or the most, technically proficient team.
Right.
It's about using what we have to create a meaningful and engaging experience for our congregation.
100%. And that's definitely something AJ would agree with. He's so
Yeah.
passionate about using technology to enhance the worship experience, not overshadow it.
Absolutely. But, I think there's another layer to this whole enhancing the worship experience thing that we haven't even touched on yet.
Oh,
It's like we've talked a lot about, using tech to kind of elevate that in-person experience, right? But what about the folks who are watching online? How do we make sure that they feel like they're really part of the service, not just like passive viewers on the other side of the screen?
oh, that's such a good point. It's easy to treat the live stream as like an afterthought,
Hmm.
but it really could be so much more than that.
Right. Like we put all this thought into like creating a welcoming atmosphere in our physical space. So
Yeah,
why not do the same thing for the digital space?
exactly. And there are a lot of like really creative ways to do that,
Yeah.
actually. I know AJ briefly mentioned using the live stream to like facilitate online watch parties, for instance,
Oh, I love that.
where people can actually,
It's like creating that virtual lobby
Yeah.
where people can, just chat, maybe share prayer requests, just say hello. It's such an easy way to like foster that sense of community even when you can't physically be together.
Exactly. And even think about like interactive elements you could bring in too.
Yeah.
Live polls, Q&A sessions, even just like encouraging people to leave comments and react in real time.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
It's about like creating that two-way dialogue.
Yeah.
So it's not just, they're not just being talked at, but they feel seen and heard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And let's not forget about like accessibility too, right?
Yeah.
The things like closed captions,
Yeah.
different language options, even having, multiple camera angles.
Well, yeah.
That can make a huge difference
Oh, yeah.
for people with disabilities or people who, learn and engage in different ways.
Absolutely. It's recognizing that like our online audience, they're just as diverse as our in-person congregation.
Right.
And we need to kind of honor and cater to those unique needs and preferences.
For sure. At the end of the day, it boils down to this. Whether someone is, physically sitting in a pew or watching from their living room, we want them to feel welcomed, connected, and ultimately inspired.
Right. Beautifully said. So for those of you listening, as you kind of reflect on your own church's media ministry, we really encourage you to think beyond the equipment, the tech specs. How can you cultivate a culture of excellence,
Yeah.
collaboration, and genuine connection, both behind the scenes and beyond the screen, right?
That's something to think about this week.
It really is. And hey, you never know. Maybe you'll discover that next big thing, right?
Absolutely.
That revolutionizes the way we experience church in this digital age.
Mhm.
Until next time, though, keep those cameras rolling, keep those connections strong, and remember the most important piece of equipment you have is, well, it's your heart for serving others.